Mass shooting at a Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl celebration parade. What can we learn from it, if anything? Stand by and I'll talk about it. So, why do I say what can we learn from it, if anything? First, let me say that there are many things we can learn from it. The question is, will you hear it or will you go about your daily lives and let this drop from your radar by the end of the day today? Most will do exactly that. So, the reason why I question, if anything, is because the first and most likely way to avoid this type of danger is to not be there. Seriously, today, these types of events bring numerous significant risks to safety and security. Why? Because there are a ton of people or potential victims, and they're all huddled together in a confined area, making escape and response to secure very difficult and time consuming. You need to take these threats seriously and put yourself in the best position to be able to act if something were to happen. Now, note that I said put yourself in the best position to be able to react rather than plan. Why? Because, and I've said this many times, plans assume you know every detail of what's going to happen and formulate a response based on that detail. The problem, it's absolutely impossible to know every detail of what will really be happening. Let me give you an example using a recommendation of what you can do to best prepare yourself to react. But at the same time, what happens if you're wrong? So, again, the first and most assured way to not be victimized is to not be there. Now, some people say that this is not always possible. There are times when you have no choice but to be there, and that's absolutely true. But we're talking about a Super Bowl parade. Obviously, there are jobs and responsibilities that would require some people to be there. But if you're attending just to join the celebration, you don't have to be there. Sorry, but that's just fact. I guarantee you that the victims of this incident would absolutely change their plans if they could do it all over again. And they wouldn't lose a thing by not being there. This type of event is riddled with risks for many reasons. Significant crowds, which are excellent targets if you're looking to inflict as much damage as possible. People all huddled together in a confined area, which makes it difficult to move, escape, and react. Tempers flaring for all kinds of reasons, intoxicated people, and I could go on and on. Now, what kinds of things can happen? Arguments, mass violence by shooting, mass violence by motor vehicles, bombs, stampedes, and I could again go on and on. Now, again, I ask the question, why would you go to an event like this to celebrate a football team's win? It's not a funeral honoring a special person, not a business meeting or conference, not a gathering to advance an important cause. You're taking your loved ones to an event to celebrate a football team winning a Super Bowl. So enough on that, as I think you get the point. And just to emphasize, I'm not criticizing those who choose to go to an event like this, but you need to do so only after considering the real risks. If you make the choice to go, then the consequences are yours to bear. So you've decided to go and you're there for whatever the reason. At this point, nothing else matters. What can you do to minimize threats to your well-being? Well, this should start well before you get there. First, you have to truly believe that something can happen. Otherwise, you won't do anything at all to prepare. If you don't believe anything could or may happen, you won't spend a second of time even thinking about it. What then? Open air environments like this are difficult because in most cases you just don't know where the threat is or where it will be coming from. But you do know where it is likely going to or targeting, and that's the center of the crowd. So the first piece of advice is to get away from the crowd as quickly as possible. Don't follow everyone else because most people are like sheep. If they can't make their own decisions, they're likely to follow the crowd. And in this type of incident, that will keep you in danger far longer than if you go in a different direction. So again, if prevention efforts fail and you now find yourself in the middle of potential danger, get away from the crowd as quickly as possible. But how can you best prepare yourself to be able to do this? That's a huge question. Find spots where you have an unimpeded escape route that also gets you cover and concealment. First, consider the ways in which a threat might inflict the most damage with minimal effort. Shooting, bombs, motor vehicle assaults. Where would be the most likely place to get the best results with minimal effort? Again, in the middle of the crowd where people have nowhere to go without being impeded by others. So the first thing to do is find a place as far from the middle as possible. You want to be on the edges of the crowd. This will apply to most types of threats. For example, consider a motor vehicle assault. Think about the goal of the threat, to kill as many people as possible. How would they do that? Well, they do it by staying in the middle of the road where there are no obstacles to them achieving their goal. So in this case, you would want to be somewhere that the threat would be avoiding because it would hinder their mission, like on the top side of a curb, along the edges of buildings, etc. The same is true for the threat of a shooter. If you're in a place where you can immediately retreat into a building and disappear, or get into a car and leave, you'll have a much better chance of avoiding victimization. Now, where you will set yourselves up requires pre-planning and surveillance. You have to strategically pick the best place to be to minimize threats to your well-being. Now, is this going overboard? I guarantee you that the victims of this horrific incident wouldn't think so now. Anyway, this is why you can't plan. If you find the perfect spot right in front of a brick building that you can immediately take cover in and or escape through, but the reality of the situation, which you could not plan for, the shooter emerged from that very door and started shooting from the place that you had planned to escape through. Now what? I guarantee you the planning process alone will start to form muscle memory that will cause you to do exactly what you plan to do, even if it takes you into danger or harm's way. Or just as likely, you'll freeze because your plan is immediately invalid and you'll have no clue what to do. Even the place that you pick was done by reasoning where a threat would likely come from, someplace other than that doorway, building, or escape route. You can only go so far with this, but with the what ifs, but the best you can do is reason and look at most likely. The key is that you do that, and that eliminates much of the chance part of the equation. This even applies to your route in getting from one point to another. Why walk in the middle of a roadway, as an example, when you could walk on the top side of a curb along the edges of a building that offers numerous alcoves and escape routes, and would be the most unlikely place for a threat to focus their attention on? You see, much of our victimization can be avoided by various means. The key to staying secure is believing that it can happen and doing what it takes to avoid and prepare yourself to respond most appropriately if prevention efforts fail. There's more to this, so stay with us. If you found this helpful, please like it, share it, and comment. See you next time.